Hi everyone, welcome to the first presentation in International Strategic Alliances. Me and my colleagues are going to present how transaction cost affects the choice of governance modes. But first, let us introduce us.
My name is Konstantin.
My name is Barbara.
And my name is Emre. And now let's start with our presentation itself. First of all, our agenda. We will start with introduction and introduce the central question and how we approach to answer it. Then we will continue with the transaction cost economy based on our lecture last week. Furthermore, we will talk about alternative aspects regarding the choice of governance modes. These are based on the articles we had to read for this week. In the end, we will have a final wrap-up of our presentation, presenting the main results. So let us start with introduction itself. Our central question is, how does transaction cost theory explain the choice for governance modes, i.e. non-equity alliance versus equity alliances? So how did we approach to answer this question? We basically looked at it from two perspectives. The first perspective would be solely focusing on transaction cost theory and explaining why to choose this certain alliance. Second of all, we introduced two alternatives, i.e. trust and institutional environment, which have been discussed in the articles. So I will pass now to my colleague and we'll talk about transaction cost economy.
The main aspect of transactional cost theory is that it's focusing on the cost itself, and the purpose of transactional cost economies is to lower the cost as much as possible. Now we'll talk about the cost and the criteria that influence the transaction. In order to realize all the costs associated with a particular transaction, you must analyze two types of costs, ex ante and ex post. The first two costs related to ex ante are initial costs, for example, searching and information and stuff like that. The second cost which will be analyzed are the negotiation and contracting cost. Now, ex post represents the costs after the contract was signed. This includes the control costs, for example, monitoring, and enforcement costs of the contract in case of something bad happens. The second part is related to the criteria of transactional costs. This analyzes the influencers of transactional costs, like asset specificity, opportunism, and frequency. My colleagues will talk about later about these aspects. Now let's think about the governance possibilities that alliance could have. The first one is equity-based alliances and has some specific characteristics. The first one is that it's creating a new entity, which means shared ownership. Besides that, it can have also two types of equity-based alliances. The first one is a direct investment in the partner, and this means that I'm in control of the other partner by being in the board of directors. And the other type is by creating a new alliances, like a new entity, as I said before. The main idea is that this type of governance is more hierarchical, because in order to control more, you need to create an hierarchy. Also, shared ownership decreases the opportunity behavior, and in conclusion, transaction cost is lowered. Now let's talk a little bit about the advantages and disadvantages of equity-based alliances. Mutual hostage and administrative hierarchy are two advantages that support equity-based alliances, usually in long-term investments. The disadvantage is that it takes a long time to negotiate and organize all the activities in the alliance. Another disadvantage is the administrative cost, which also increases. Now we'll talk about the other type of governance, which means non-equity alliances. What this means is that a new entity is not created, so exchange of equity is missing and sharing is not done. So this is used usually when a contract is made, like an arm's length contract. The advantage, let's say so, is that it leads to a less vulnerable environment to opportunism. The advantages and disadvantages consist of lower cost and time of negotiation, and the disadvantages difficult in sharing of new knowledge and creation of new knowledge. Now my colleague will talk about governance and asset specificity.
Okay, let's have a look how asset specificity influence governance mode. Let me explain this on an example. Imagine that you will be employed by an employer who wants from you really specific education. So you need to do really specific investment in yourself. You will be then really vulnerable to the opportunism of your employer. That means that if he will say, no, I don't want to collaborate you with, really anymore, you will get really into the trouble. So how can you protect yourself? You can share your investment with your employer. That means you will form some more equity-based alliance with your partner. That means you will also lower your transaction costs. Now from the other angle, let's have a look on what's the impact of low asset specificity. Imagine that you are selling, for example, bread. This is not really specific asset. Then you are less vulnerable to the opportunism of your partner, which means that for you it's better to organize it through market, because if you will organize this transaction through the more hierarchical mode, you will need to invest more, it will be more costly for you and also more time consuming. Then from our papers we find some alternative aspects on this theory. These theories take into consideration also trust and institutional environment. How does trust influence transaction cost theory? What is trust, first of all? When you trust somebody, you expect that your partner will not behave opportunistic. That means that your transaction costs will be lower because you don't need to monitor him or enforce somehow your transaction or your relationship. That means trust lower your transaction costs, and then you are more likely to organize your transaction through the market. So you will be more likely to base no equity alliance. Institutional environment. So what will happen when institutional environment will become lower, weaker? This means that you can protect yourself two ways. Either you organize your transaction through more hierarchical mode of governance, or you can limit your transaction only to those who are not so vulnerable to the opportunism or to something that could hurt. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so now let us conclude our presentation. So we basically answered the question in two ways, TCE and also using other factors. We found out that transaction cost economy and theory only takes into account the transaction cost itself. My aim is to have cost as low as possible. However, when you take into account factors like trust, you can also use them actually to decrease or increase your transaction costs, as we discussed in our presentations. So all in all, to answer the question, you should not only take into account transaction cost itself, also additional factors which can also play a huge role when engaging in business with different companies from different worlds. So last remark and also last task for you guys, come up with how we could actually further research this topic. So we want to thank you for listening and watching our video, and we will see you in the tutorial. Thank you very much.
Bye.
See you.